Hey, Lean friends. Welcome to another episode of Lean Coaching for Lean Coaches. I'm so excited to be here with you. The benefit of doing this once a month is that the energy just builds and it builds and it builds, and then we're here. So if you thought once every week was a lot, yes, once every month has got that energy. And I am so excited for today's conversation. As you know, these conversations are places where we bring on lean coaches just like you who are either in the business or out on their own and have a conversation with them and help them move forward, get some insights. And for me, I am a coach who loves supporting lean entrepreneurs who are stuck or starting and helping them move forward to where they really want to get to. But today, I am super excited to bring on and have a great conversation with someone that I've just been getting to know here over the last a few months. Really, we met in person at the Lean Solutions Summit and had some great conversations. So I'm excited to have one over the airways and really kind of explore some things that are going on for him. So anyway, thank you, Mr. Chad Bareither, for coming on today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I normally would do like some like intro music from like the Detroit Pistons or like dent 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 dent, the old 90s thing where they'd like introduce the starting lineup. But you don't need any introduction music. You just bring it all.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm flattered by that.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, Chad, again, it was super cool to meet last month there in Ye Old, Michigan. It was my first time to Michigan, and getting to meet you and have some really great, meaningful conversations. One of which we will leave the folks who check this out, but we have decided we are going to create our own company and take over the lean world, right? Like it's just we've already got it. If you want to be on the board, really high paying salaries, right? Lots of massive benefits, um, big results. Yes.
Yeah, well, just I'm sick of telling all these leaders of companies how to do it right. I'm just going to do it myself. So we started the company. We haven't exactly decided what we're going to do yet. Like,
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
the product or service we provide? But
No, no. Or the name or anything. But
as you can imagine, this conversation came out of a later point in the evening at the bar. So
yes,
it's
that's
very
fine.
well constructed.
We'll leave it at that. But for those who aren't familiar with you, aren't connected to you, so of course I encourage, if you're not, please definitely connect with Chad. I just appreciate your energy, your realness, your genuineness, and obviously you bring knowledge around in this space. But just for folks who aren't connected to you, maybe share a little bit about what you're about, so we can have some context.
Sure. Well, I think per the title of this interview coaching session, I'm a lean coach. So what I help is I help operational leaders solve problems that will unlock productivity so they can improve their delivery to their marketplace and boost their profit. Oftentimes in any business, you need just a different perspective on the problems that you have. And so I liked in your intro, you said about we're just getting started or we're stuck. And so a lot of my clients are the same way, is they're just getting started on a transformation journey, or they're stuck somehow, like stuck, not able to start, or have had a couple of false starts, failure to launch, and just saying, we need a different perspective when we're coming at that. My perspective as a consultant, if you want to put that title on it, is I provide either capability, right? So
Mm,
I've had application experience or understand some of the concepts, tools, principles that they don't. Oftentimes it's capacity, right? We're so busy delivering for our client. Like, I need the headspace to focus on the business. I need someone to be focusing on helping me transform the business. And
mm,
so that's a lot of what I provide for some of my clients.
mm. Headspace, providing space to be able to process, and then having somebody who can help them kind of think through and reframe and give them a different perspective on how they can move forward towards where they want to get to. That's what I'm
Mhm.
hearing.
Yeah. And if you want to get results faster in anything, we talked about this, have talked about this before, right? So the example of a personal trainer, or let's
Yep.
say a musical teacher, like a piano teacher, or you want to learn another language, like, can you learn on your own? Absolutely. You can
Yep.
absolutely do it on your own, right? does the personal trainer, does the musician have knowledge that does not exist in the marketplace? Like, rarely, right? But
Right.
they know where you're at, and they can help you get to your goal faster, and you make an investment of time, energy, sometimes resource into
Mm.
that coach, and it gets you faster traction.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's really the case. I think of like I love that example of the personal trainer. Speaking as someone with lots of experience in the dad bod here, um, it's that whole like, I'll give you, get you a six pack in 6 weeks. It's a both and, right? It's the trainer bringing that knowledge to, okay, here's the process, here's the workouts, here's the times every day you're going to show up, here's the machines you're going to use, and here's the way you're going to do it, right? But then you kind of got to show up and do it, right? So it's a both and, right? They bring the willingness and the energy and the action, and you bring the process and the encouragement and the space for them to move forward. um, yeah, that's great. I know we are definitely aligned on a lot of these things. That's why I really am excited for this conversation,
Yeah.
because some of the things, as we talked about in Michigan, and then even just as we were kind of leading up to this conversation, are like some of the things you were sharing are so relevant. You were like, well, I wonder, and that's a question I get a lot when I'm talking to folks about, having these conversations here. It's like, well, is this something people relate to? And like 99.99999% of the time is yes, because I talk to so many different folks who are in the lean entrepreneur um, consultant space. I'm like, yeah, that is something that they deal with. So, I'm just curious for you, as you are, a few years in your journey, as I understand, right? What right now is kind of the most on your mind or real or thing that's taking up your most headspace that you're like, man, this is a pain right
Mhm,
now.
mhm. Yeah, so I wanna encourage anyone who's listening, right? So I've been an internal change agent, continuous improvement practitioner. I'm now an independent consultant. What I'm talking about is relevant because I remember being internal and you kinda have to justify your role, like, "What have you done for me
Yeah.
lately?"
Yep. Yep.
The thing that I'm wrestling with, so let's go back to your example of like a personal trainer. If I'm gonna seek out or hire a personal trainer,
Yeah.
I was thinking about this morning. Like, if I'm gonna look for a dentist, I mean, when I moved, I didn't interview a lot of dentists. I'm like, "You went to dental school? Good. I'm done." Right?
Right. That's
But
right.
for other professions like that, like personal training consultants, like we're continuous improvement professionals. We're looking for some sort of credibility and trust. Do you understand? Like,
Mm,
if I don't really get along with my dentist, it's not the biggest deal, right? Because I see him every 6 months for a half hour or whatever. Um But, like, when someone's looking for a continuous improvement professional to help them, internal resource or consultant. So where I'm struggling with is how do you build that trust and credibility? And let's get a little bit more specific. So to the personal trainer example, like, you're looking
yeah.
at results. So, like, what results have you got for other clients?
Yeah.
And how quick can I get those results? And,
Yeah.
like, so, literally, I had a call this morning, and they're like, "So how quick can we get to that?" And I'm like, "Uh," this was a first call, and I'm like, "Haven't even seen your operations." I'm going off a lot of but, like, people want that level of
Yep.
certainty, that level of confidence,
Hmm.
to move forward, that I'm gonna get tangible results of X in timeline Y.
That's right.
So that's just kind of the challenge of, like, when you're looking for the next client or the next project. So for me, I'll pivot off the, like, talking to everyone, and I'll just talk about my problems. Feel very selfish, but that's okay. Uh, is that is that, like, when I'm advocating for, like, the service I can do, like,
Yeah.
you do need to speak a little bit to the results, the value it
Yeah.
provides. And so if my value is really only achieved through my client's success, right? That
Yeah.
presents a little bit of a challenge where I'm like a degree of separation. Like, I can't just come in and, like, run your machines for you, right? Or take over leadership for you for 6 months and then be like, "That's what I did for you." To the point I made earlier, I bring capacity or capability. Like, they're still running the process. So
Right.
my measure of success is dependent upon my clients, but future clients are relying on evidence of success.
Yes.
Help me. Okay, that was just like bleh, like word vomit. Like, help me distill that down, echo it back to me.
Oh gosh. Uh, so maybe I won't echo back the exact same like words because I mean that's probably what I should do if I were like professional or something. But I feel like what I'm hearing is that what they want, right, is they want security, right? They want security.
Mm,
Hey, if we're going to invest our time, our energy, our heart, and our money into this, like we want to know that we're going to get something, right? And for me, it's a how does it like? There's a multiple different things, but a part of it for me is like how do I look if I don't, right?
mm.
I think that there's a big piece there for sure, but what you're talking about though is how do I build that trust when there's a I don't have full control over the results, even though that's what's building the trust.
Yes. And so, like, I have case studies, right? I have examples I can point to, but that kind of like, what are you gonna like, what are you gonna do for me? Like, I see those other results. What are you gonna do if I'm speaking on behalf of the client? What are you gonna do for me, and how soon is that gonna happen? And like, a lot of that is it depends. How fast do you wanna go? How fast can you go? And so, you know what I mean? It's like you have kind of a very broad estimate of directionally where you can go, and that refines like through the engagement. Right? Just like you would with any personal trainer, musician, musical teacher, stuff like that. Like, how good of a piano player can you make me? Well, I don't know. Like, how long have you played
Right.
piano for? Like, can you read music? And there's all these other things that are like help you refine the estimate. But you know, just frankly, in the open marketplace, like people don't know me from Adam, so it's just like what what is significant about the results or the confidence I can get from you versus the next person in line.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. What do you feel like when you ask that question to yourself? What comes up for you? Like what kind of answers do you come up with? Because obviously you've thought about this at length, knowing you the way I do.
What comes up to me is like, so I'm ultimately interested in sustainability over results. So I'm just gonna like speak like off the cuff here, and then have
Please.
to reel back in and see how much that makes sense, right? But that's not necessarily something the client wants to do. But I am more interested in it's successful for me if I don't have to go back to a client 2 years from now.
Come
Do you know
on
what I'm
now.
saying?
Absolutely.
So then, but so here's the challenge, and I can point to past experience that I have of like you can generate substantial, even like financially validated results, but then like if it doesn't sustain past the first leadership change, whenever that is, 6 months, 18 months, 2 years from now, like I'm like, oh, that's not fun. It's not that's not fun for me. Like it's not that's not my goal to like go back in and solve the same problem for the same client. So like I'm
Right.
more interested in going at the pace that you can like transform to.
Yeah.
So that question about like how fast can we get results is like still
Yeah.
like it depends. Like you've
Yes.
shown me these case studies. All right, so I need those by December of 2025. Is that possible?
Yep.
It is possible. That's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but remember, possibility is on a scale of 0 to 1. So like, yes, 100% or like 1%. I don't like, is it
Yeah. Yeah.
possible? It is possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's for me. This is such a great question, and one I wish I had the perfect answer to. Because in my mind, I'm like, oh, we gotta. But I think we're you've got a goal in mind, right? For them, you want to help them get to. You've got a process clearly that you can take them through and will help them. Um, I think for me, the question we're asking here is one that can only be answered internally. Like we have
Mm,
to trust ourselves in our process, right? We bring everything we can, and then you know we have to have the people that we're working with. It seems to me like you want to like when you're having a conversation with a potential person, it's as much a conversation of like to see if they're a fit for you as you
yes.
are with
Yep.
them. All right. You know, the people that you've worked with that have gotten the best out of that. So a big piece
Mhm.
of that is, okay, like let's have this conversation, and you can tell right away, okay, these are not my people, right? They're not going to be a good
Mm.
fit for the way I show up. And they're not going to get anything out of it. So they're not there. My wife is a consultant, and I appreciate how she shows up because she has turned down more work than I have seen myself. And a part of that is because she knows who she is. She knows the people she wants to work with, and she knows who will get the best out, that will get the most out of it. So I think a
Mm.
huge part of it, Chad, is like, at least for me, is knowing who your people are, who your ideal person is, and then trying to get in front of as many of those folks as you possibly can, and then seeing how does that land?
I mean, it's very insightful. How it lands is like a with a little bit of upset stomach, and here's why, right? Because like turning down work as an independent consultant, you're just like, oof, like
Yes.
I haven't had to turn down a lot of work, or I shouldn't say it that I shouldn't have had the luxury, the benefit, the maybe you might even say the willpower to turn down particular work. But you bring up a great point of like if I go back retroactively and look at engagements that I find more or less successful, are there attributes of the client, and by client I don't necessarily mean the individual, but of the client that
Yep.
I would say, yeah, these are some great telltale signs. And I do have an assessment that I walk through, like whether I don't necessarily give it to them. I don't sell the assessment, but I'm doing that
Right.
on a first visit, and it's making me think like, are those variables in that assessment? Because here's what I was thinking about when you were doing that. I would love, so as a recovering engineer, right, and statistician, is that I would love to have like a formula where you just plug in these variables and you're like, it's a 90% fit, right? But
Yes.
it doesn't exist, and just like
Right.
any relationship, like a dating relationship, right? You don't know everything about the client until you start working with them in some
Yeah,
cases.
of course.
But there are some things that I could look at and kinda look back and say it's not a perfect equation. It's not a perfect assessment. I don't think there is a perfect assessment, but I should be going back and say, do I have all of those clear variables covered in that, so I would know earlier than later, um,
Yep.
whether or not this is gonna be a good fit? And I think part of it is also being upfront about the client of like, "Look, once we get past this initial phase, if it's not a good fit, I'm gonna let you know."
Yeah.
Um, hmm.
Mm. How do
It so
you
it lands well in the brain, not so good in the heart, Sam.
that's hard. And why doesn't it land? Why is it hard for you in the heart space?
Oh,
Like your
I
word
just
there.
think about, independent and security and, revenue and things like that, of saying like, "Ooh, I'm aware that means I'm going to have to say no to work, and like, am I ready for that?" Do you know what I mean? Like
Mm,
that first time you say, "No, thanks, not a good fit."
what does that bring up for you?
Uh, the concern about, is there something else in the pipeline, right? The confidence you have to that something's behind that. And I just don't think I'm that, well, I should say, do I not think, or am I not? I'm gonna go with I don't think. So it's probably more me than anything else. Is
Mm,
like that I'm stable enough to say no to a, a client that's not a good fit.
mm. What do you Can you say more about that? Just like what about where you're at right now doesn't feel stable? Like, why do you feel like you're not stable?
Oh, man. I don't know. So I think we're really getting to maybe the crux of the issue here, or the problem I'm trying to dig through is like, I don't know the answer to that. Like
Mm,
what would make me feel that way? What would make me confident that I can decline work and that's actually for the best? I got to sit with that for a while and try to understand that. Like I don't think there's
mm.
a number where you're like, yeah, when I have X many prospects in my pipeline or whatever,
Right.
I think it is more of a mindset, an abundance versus scarcity mindset type thing. And oh my gosh, and I just had a, like, LinkedIn communication exchange about this, about we put all these dichotomies out in the workplace. So there's one, like, scarcity versus abundance, and
Right.
it's not you're this or that, right? It's a
Right.
spectrum,
Of course.
and I just think on that spectrum right now, I'm more towards the scarcity for some reason. For some reason,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm learning not to be, but I still am stuck a little bit there.
Do you have any like initial like cuz a lot of the times I feel like we have these moments and then we feel something internally and then we're like, and then we push it away, right? Like, oh no, no, no. Right. So in this moment, what's like when you think, okay, scarcity abundance, I'm over here a little more on the scarcity, which is like in my conversations with most initial people who are in entrepreneurship and I'm like there with you. I totally can feel that. What do you feel like is, and I know it's a process and this is 25 minutes, so I get it, but like what's your initial like, oh my gosh, this I can see some things right here that's causing that scarcity.
I don't know. I mean, I'm a little scared this is gonna quickly bridge into, like, a therapy session, unless it already is. But I don't know.
No,
I think there's some financial security that I'm looking
for
at
sure.
there,
Yeah.
right? Of saying like, "Oof, if I said no to this, even though I'm really busy right now, and even though it's not a perfect fit, like, is there the next revenue opportunity coming soon enough to make up for that valley?" Do you know what I'm saying?
Hmm. You want to be on firm foundation, like
Yeah.
it's like we're like our clients, right? We want the sure thing.
Yeah, yeah, right, so the what, is that a Benjamin Franklin adage, I think? "A bird in the hand's worth two in the bush," of like,
There we go. That's right.
"Well, I got this one," and I'm actually it's making me think about there are 2 prospects that I'm thinking about right now in the pipeline where it's I already know, I'm kinda like, it's not really a not that the client's not a good fit, it's not this is for a different reason, is it's not necessarily aligned with the services I want to be delivering. And I mean, it's like, I
Mm,
could but I'm like, "But I could do that work." So it's almost like I'm trying to
yes.
rationalize myself of like, "But it's kinda related to something you do." It's like
It's connected in some ubiquitous way.
yeah, rather than being, a little bit more rigid with my own decision making and saying like, "No, it's not a good fit."
One of the things that I talk with a lot of folks about is I call it the three P's. I know lots of marketing people have these different things, but it's your ideal person, right? Their pain points and your promise, like what you deliver.
Mm,
And I find that most people will get wider with those rather than tighter, right?
mm,
Because especially when
mhm,
you're early on, you're like, I need more
mhm,
business. In fact, I an old lean leader that I was associated with, like about a year ago, he and I were having conversations, and he was like, "Well, you know what? You need to go wider at first, and you get more, and then when you start getting your feet under you, then you can get more." I'm like, "Well, actually, that's not what every single marketing person I respect. They talk about being interesting. Don't be like the same, right? Be a purple
mm,
cow, right? Like all these things, and it's like." That doesn't tell me go wider and fit in, that tells me goes thinner and stand out. And I think part of that is we have to get clear about those things. And it's easy to just kind of skirt around those and then be clear. Okay. And then I'm just going to go in that direction and see how it goes. Right. Because when we start defining who we are, who our person is and their problem, then that sort of helps filter a lot out. Um,
mm,
if that makes sense. So I think that there's definitely value in that clarity. And of course, that'll surface a lot of stuff as you're going through. Well, what if I added this piece and that piece? It's like, and I've just honestly myself, I've started really landing for me, like on lean entrepreneurs who are stuck and starting, right? Like that's the space for me because I've been there myself. I know that experience
mm,
and I've talked to
mhm,
so many people. I have experience and I've got a process to be able to help support people through that. And so that feels right to me. Now, of course, is there lots of other lean people I could support? Yes, right. But like when you start doing that, then people who are lean entrepreneurs who are stuck are starting like, oh, and then especially if I'm putting stuff out there that speaks to that, oh, okay, then there's more
Mhm,
people that are
mhm.
I'm going to find coming my way. So to kind of land the plane here around some of those pieces that you just were kind of like, "Ugh," um, I wonder, have you heard of Tim Ferriss?
Yeah, yeah. 4-hour
Yeah.
work week guy, yeah.
Yep. He also has this thing called a fear setting. Have you ever
Not
seen?
familiar with it.
Yeah. I'll put this in the link, but it's something I wonder if you would be open to checking out. I can give you the Cliff's Notes version of it. Um, but it's something that helped me launch out on my own, and really helped me get past that fear of the like launching and the insecurity and instability.
Mhm,
Um, So the activity is three parts. The first part is you look at your biggest fear and you reflect, and you like your decision and your biggest fears about that, and then like, okay, what's my measure to help me navigate that, and the countermeasure if that comes. And the next part is like, if I do this thing, what are the benefits aside from just being like, $1 million lean consultant and Tony Robbins of coaching, right? Lean coaching or whatever. And the last part is like looking 6 months, a year, 3 years down the road. If I'm struggling to make this decision, like if I don't make it, then what's that future look like?
mm,
I
mhm.
What you're sharing makes me feel like that could be an interesting activity to explore and see what comes up, and if that doesn't help you, maybe get some clarity.
Yeah. Yeah, it does sound like an interesting exercise to go through.
Yes. I'd love to hear kind of maybe your like takeaways as you're kind of thinking of this conversation. What are you leaving with? What was valuable for you? What are you processing?
So what's interesting to me is we kinda did we, in a way, did a circle of kinda starting off at this, like, where does my next client coming from? But we got back to that same point for a different reason, like, if I say no, where's my next client coming?
Mm.
But yeah, I think it's very insightful. Like, I'm even gonna border on saying encouraging to say, like, saying no is for the best. It's kind of don't tell anyone, like, I often tell my clients that, like, we need to be more say more no to more things and be more strategic. So, yeah, it's landing really well. I think I gotta figure out in the short term, like I said, I have some real opportunities to explore that with some prospects that are in the pipeline right now and saying, "Is that really a fit for where I wanna be?" Whatever you said, 6 months, 5 years down the road, or is it something I'm taking now because I have a fear of something not working out if I say no. Yeah, it's, uh, it's good. I mean, it's a tough one to process through and wrestle with. I feel it'll still be more of a challenge to put into action,
Mm.
but I do think up here, I may not feel it yet, right, that it's, it's the right next step.
Well, Chad, we're going to leave folks hanging there, and excited to hear how that goes. For you, I wish we had way more time to explore this and do that, but I love to see as you kind of go through this journey and reflect. That you put it out there in whatever way, as you're kind of going into that heart space, and the saying no, I think, is something that we can all go into that uncomfortable space and use more work on. So thank you, Chad, for dropping in. And for if you're not connected to Chad, please do. He's got such life and energy, and just genuinely good guy. I don't care what anyone else says. So on the LinkedIn space. But thank you, Chad, for coming on, my friend. Appreciate it. Have